I've never seen a team as committed to its principles that its coaches has infused as this team is. I see stretches in games where this team can't make anything, and they don't go away from what the foundation of their team is. They just stay the course, and the ball movement maintains, the advantage, the advantage creation through the system maintains, and they pass the ball around, the players move, and they just nonstop create great shots. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, especially on the heels of what this Cavs team looked like the last 2 seasons under JB Bickerstaff. It is basically a completely different team, but it's the same players.
What I love about Tyrese Haliburton is he is always hunting shots. And what I mean by that is not he's hunting his shot, but he is always looking for a shot opportunity. It's like, let's get to a good shot at 21 seconds. It's not there. All right, let me get it back. All right, whoa, we found a decent shot at 17 seconds. Oh, I got covered up. Let me get it back. We'll find a new one. They attack help with a pass to a player who is being helped off of. So when that player receives the pass, they automatically have an advantage against a closeout. So we often see a defensive player kind of stunt or help towards where the ball is. The Pacers all give that ball up immediately to the player who is being defended by the player who is stunting or trying to help, and they just attack the basket. Simply being a step slow or being out of position is an opening to hunt a shot. That is what I really like about this Pacers offense. They play with pace, not necessarily at the highest pace in the league in terms of a game-by-game basis, but everything within their offense moves fast. That is the reason why I think they have a pretty scary offense that can challenge and really push the Cavaliers defense. This is Hot Hand Theory. This is a podcast where we talk about the NBA and break things down from an analytical perspective. I'm your co-host XJ. As always, I'm joined by my brilliant co-host, Geoff. Geoff, today we are going to break down everything that people need to know about this huge Cavs and Pacers series that we are so excited for. And we're going to do it in like 30 minutes, 35 minutes at the most. So this is going to be a very densely packed episode with tons of data, tons of a deep understanding of what these teams want to do and how they match up against one another. For me, this is my most anticipated matchup of the second round, personally. We're going to talk about why this Pacers team could be a surprisingly difficult challenge for what really looks like a dominant Cleveland Cavaliers team and break down all of the aspects of it. But as usual, I'm going to let you figure out and decide where we should start off the analysis, Geoff, for this exciting. I just can't wait for this series. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome series to watch. I feel like our job, XJ, is there are Pacers fans, obviously, who are going to come watch this, and there are Cavs fans who are going to come watch this, and they're going to be super knowledgeable about their team. I think it's our job to inform them what they're in for with the other team, because the Pacers made the conference finals last year. That was a great run for them. The Cavs, they squeaked by a Magic team last season and then got kind of trounced by Boston. I think a lot of people, look, if you're a Cavs fan, this is going to be a really fun episode for you because what the Cavs have kind of done is completely shatter the mold in terms of synergy and what a ceiling for a team that maybe isn't optimized synergistically can be. And I think we have to start with the Cavs after their amazing season. And that's sort of where I'd want to start with them in terms of just how amazing it is that Kenny Atkinson first year. I just think back to some of the conversations that were being had about Cleveland, like people already predicting Donovan Mitchell wouldn't be a Cav for much longer. Oh, is he going to Brooklyn? Can Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland coexist? Think about the stuff we talked about, actually, about Mobley and Allen and how have to trade Allen. Kenny Atkinson comes in, staggers everyone immediately. He figures out the rotation in a way that maximizes all these different players. He infuses, these principles of ball movement, man movement, lots of three-point shooting. If you're a Pacers fan, you do not understand what you are about to deal with this shooting. And look, actually, I don't want to get you in trouble with Cavs fans. I'm not gonna throw you under the bus. For anyone who doesn't know, XJ, easily one of, if not the smartest person I've ever met, and he is nothing if not cautious. And all season long, I would badger XJ and be like, is this the week we cover the Cavs? Can we do the Cavs? And XJ just, look, we got to wait. We got to wait. Is this shooting real? Is this shooting real? Like, how can this shooting be real? It doesn't make sense. How can it be real? And listen, folks, this team is loaded with shooting, absolutely loaded with shooting. And this isn't just percentages. This is volume and percentages. Everybody in their rotation, with the exception of Jared Allen, shoots threes. When we're talking about attempts, volume, and we're talking about efficiency, you've got Donovan Mitchell, 95th percentile in attempts. He shot 37% from three. Darius Garland, 84th percentile in attempts per 75, 40% from three. Max Strus, 84th percentile, 39% from three. I mean, you just keep going down the list. Sam Merrill, 92nd percentile in volume, 37% from three. This says nothing of Evan Mobley, Dean Wade, 62nd percentile in attempts, 36% from three. Shit, even Isaac Okoro, who, many people write off, he now has 4 straight seasons of 35% or better, and he just blew away his career high in attempts. This team, everybody on the team, actually, they all shoot, they all fire away. And I'm going to say something that I don't think anybody said, and I said it to XJ earlier in the season. I've never seen a team as committed to its principles that its coaches has infused as this team is. And I truly believe that watching them. And I think that XJ's retort, and I think it's a logical retort, XJ's retort would be, well, they haven't really faced any adversity. They've just made shots forever. So of course they're gonna maintain a faith in the system. But I see stretches in games where this team can't make anything, and they don't go away from what the foundation of their team is. They don't. Donovan Mitchell doesn't all of a sudden panic and say, "All right, it's my time to be a hero. I'm gonna try to create a mid-range shot." Or they just stay the course, and the ball movement maintains. The advantage, the advantage creation through the system maintains, and they pass the ball around, the players move, and they just nonstop create great shots. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, especially on the heels of what this Cavs team looked like the last 2 seasons under JB Bickerstaff. It is basically a completely different team, but it's the same players.
Yeah, I think it was a great breakdown for sure. And I'll say a couple of things. So one, yes, the same players, but I do think they're playing differently on top of what Atkinson has come in and kind of implemented from an offensive system schematic standpoint. You can see a huge overhaul in the way that they attack. And we'll get into all of the specifics as well. But you also have seen marked improvement from Evan Mobley, marked improvement from Darius Garland. And those two things are a huge reason for why they're in the position that they are. You are also seeing, obviously, Ty Jerome didn't play much, if at all, last season. He's burst onto the scene as like a star bench player. Like, we're seeing critical improvements and developments. Now, I don't think that's in isolation. Like, I don't think those guys all develop and become as good as they are and as impactful as they have been under, if they were still under JB Bickerstaff. Like, it's really hard to parse apart. But about their shot making, to me, the biggest thing is that I think their offensive scheme and the way that they attack gives them a tremendously high floor for their offense. I think that they, even if they don't make shots, at worst, they're still going to be an elite offense, which is crazy to say. The shot making is what makes their ceiling like unreal. And I'm going to say, like, I'll just give some data on this. The Cavs were this season third by team, third in floater shot making, first in rim shot making, third in 3-point shot making, including second in pull-up 3-point shot making this season. The only place they were lower than third is in mid-range shot making, and they don't really take those. The shot making that we've seen from this team, on top of the schematic approach and the way that they methodically get great shots all the time, is what makes them seem like an unstoppable juggernaut. And in my opinion, that level of shot making is typically not sustainable. And when I say typically, I mean like almost to a historically unprecedented level being that sustainable. And so I'm always generally going to bet on things that are historically unprecedented, not happening. And that means I'm going to probably be right about those things 80 to 90% of the time. But the other 10% to 20%, I'm just going to be wrong because historically unprecedented things happen. Like, that's just a fact. And it is possible that they just have all of these great players. They get tons of great shots constantly. And you can bring in a guy like DeAndre Hunter, and he was already playing well. Now he's just better somehow. You can, bring in a guy off the street effectively in Ty Jerome, who was a bit of a journeyman. Now is just an elite bench player in the league. You can just bring in these guys, and there's something in the water in Cleveland, and they just make every shot. I think, as far as talking about them with respect to the Pacers, the chance for the Pacers is that their shot making does not continue. And to me, that's the only shot that they have. Because if the Cavs play their high floor offense with the shot making, I don't know who can beat them. And that includes the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Boston Celtics. So that is kind of where I'm at. I love what Atkinson has done. They have such a varied offensive approach. Like, you can't really stop them one way or the other. And that's something that we'll talk about. Like, I was thinking about, Nembhard and Nesmith and their impact on the game in terms of slowing down dribble penetration, because dribble penetration is death against Cleveland. If their guards get into the paint, it's over, because they are the best cutting team in the league. They have sharp interior passing, and they're going to basically get a dunk or a high percentage shot or a high percentage 3-point attempt that's going to be wide open if you allow dribble penetration. But they don't just attack off of ISOs and pick and rolls. They attack in tons of ways, right? Like, they can have Jarrett Allen flash middle and have him and Mobley like high-low. They can clear out a side and run a pick and roll that makes it hard for a help defense to come over or the low man to recover in time. If you have really strong point of attack defenders, they run Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell off of DHOs constantly. They'll run, high double drags with their bigs. Like, they just have so many ways to attack you. And again, excellent screening team and an elite cutting team, one of the best cutting teams we've seen in the last 10 years, maybe. So they just feel sort of unstoppable unless they stop themselves, and that would look like a poor shot making series. So that's kind of what I think about them, which maybe that feels reductive to an extent, but if they make shots like this, I don't know how anyone can beat them.
They run one of my favorite actions in all the NBA. I don't know what the name of it is, but it's this action where, let's say Garland has the ball near half court or crossing half court. Strus is in the left corner, and he sprints to the ball, to the guy guarding the ball, and sets a ghost screen. The big is at like the left, above the break on the other side of the court, basically acting as though he's getting ready to move over to screen for the ball handler. Garland, after Strus ghost screens the ball handler, Garland will hit him in motion, and the big will then screen on Strus's man who is trailing. And this will set up a very, very nice, advantageous situation for Max Strus, who is not a natural pick and roll handler. And it's a way to get Strus downhill. It's a way to set Strus up with pull-up threes. It's a way to set Strus up with rim attempts. And while Strus isn't a natural, pick and roll ball handler, he's fine at throwing slip passes, so he can hit the big man rolling. The great thing about this set, though, is let's say you have an amazingly on the fly, like an Aaron Nesmith type defender who identifies the play, keeps up with Strus, and disallows the pass from occurring or breaks it up. They have an easy counter to go to where Allen just moves on and screens for Garland, and they run a normal pick and roll. It's one of the coolest sets ever because there's no way to stop it. There's nothing you can do. It's like you put all this attention to making sure that Strus doesn't walk into a pull-up three or walk into a really advantageous pick and roll, and the Cavs are just like, all right, on to the next thing. We'll just create an advantage a different way. It's crazy. It's so wild, the type of schematic innovation that they have. I need to drop that H. People yell at me on this show.
That's gonna be 5 comments, Geoff. I'm sorry.
It's a 5 comment penalty. Schematic innovation from Kenny Atkinson, And one other thing they do really well that I'm not going to say you didn't mention, because you're the one who, even in amidst you being like, let's wait a second, let's not talk about Cleveland just yet. Even
the midst of me being a hater, is that what you're trying to say, Geoff?
Amidst of
just
you being a hater,
I
was going to use the word patient, but hater's fine. Even amidst your patience, you were the first person, in my opinion, to identify to me that the big thing that Kenny Atkinson did from day one was enable Evan Mobley as a ball handler. That is, you talked about Evan Mobley getting better, but in my opinion, he didn't just get better at the things that he was already good at, like defense and rebounding. And sure, he's taking almost 3 times as many threes this year as he ever has in his career, and he's doing so at decent accuracy. These things are all true. But in my opinion, and what you tuned me into, the number one thing that Kenny Atkinson did was say to Evan Mobley, dude, you're gonna grab a rebound, you just go. We trust you. You can create offense from the perimeter. These bigs that they put on you can't guard you. You can just take them. And Mobley, in that way, you mentioned big pick and rolls. They sometimes, when Allen and Mobley share the court together, they'll have Allen screen for him. But he doesn't even need a screen against the types of guys who guard him. He can just take them, back them down, use his size advantage, and create some high-low opportunities, create some kickouts, create floaters. So this is going to be a very, very unique and difficult matchup for Indiana, because Cleveland offers so many problems that you have to solve.
Yeah, those are all really great points. And I think, I do think I want to kick it back to you in a second, just talk about the specifics of the comparison, because the way that we've portrayed Cleveland so far, which I think is accurate, it's hard for me to see Indiana really threatening them without this would be a sudden regression back to kind of normal level shooting for Cleveland, given that I don't think there's a way to like stop their offense. Like, I don't think you can just shut them down, because they have, like you mentioned, they have so many counters, different ways to attack, different guys to initiate from different angles. Their cutting and screening is all sharp. Their passing is sharp. Several guys can handle the ball. All can shoot at an elite clip. Like, when you have all of those options all together, Kenny's so willing to stagger and switch up lineups and rotations until he finds what's working effectively. Like, it doesn't really portray a picture where the Pacers have a shot the way that we're describing it. So I guess, in your opinion, just to kind of shift over to the Indiana side, maybe we can talk about Indiana, but I really want to get at why the feeling or thought may be that they could push the Cavs a little bit more than some people are expecting.
So first, I feel the need to start by saying, if people are just looking for like boring predictions, I'd imagine that XJ and I's any prediction we make in a series will align with like betting odds. Neither one of us are really gamblers, or sports bettors, but it'll be boringly analytical like that. Although, interestingly enough, XJ went hugely against the grain in one first round series and was spot on by he predicted Timberwolves in 5 when the Timberwolves were 2-1 underdogs. So missed out on some money there. XJ.
I didn't even know they were 2-1 underdogs. So
yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, that's wild.
I think that the boring answer is like, yeah, the Cavs are betting the series price is what it is for a reason. They're probably going to win a higher percentage of the time than they're going to lose. I think, though, that the Pacers are actually a strangely good, if there's a team that's not Boston or OKC that's going to give the Cavs sort of a run for their money, I think the Pacers are one of the best candidates to do so. And I think that's the case because, to be frank, the Pacers aren't going to try to stop Cleveland. Like they're gonna move the ball quick. They're gonna run, and I know their defense has been better this year than it gets credit for, and it was better than it was last season. But at their core, they're a team built around Tyrese Haliburton that wants to push the ball, that wants to push the pace, that wants to create a lot of good shots themselves. And I think that Cleveland could experience a pressure and a need to maintain that elite shot making that they haven't really felt all season long across the 7-game series against Indiana, because, we talked a ton about Cleveland's offense, how great they are, what they're in for. But let me tell you this, Cavs fans, you may know Tyrese Haliburton as the guy that NBA players voted as the most overrated, but I think you're about to find out why XJ and I would probably argue that he's the most underrated player in the NBA, because he does not get the credit that he deserves for being just a magnificent basketball player, and specifically a magnificent offensive basketball player, and the way he is just a singular engine and what he does for his whole team's offense. It's not gonna be him scoring 40 points and shooting 25 shots. And what it's gonna be is every possession you watch your team try to defend this Pacers team, you're gonna be furious, because it's like, how do they keep getting these shots? And Haliburton is just, he is this generation's point guard. He is whatever you thought Chris Paul was offensively for those mid 2000s Hornets teams, and then the Clippers in the early 2010s. What Chris Paul did in terms of not turning it over, in terms of playing chess and putting guys in the right spots and anticipating passes early, that is what Tyrese Haliburton does for your offense. We said it on High End Theory on our Twitter account the other day. Haliburton was one of like 7 players in the entire NBA this season to be in both the top 98 and to be in the 98th percentile or above in both offensive LeBron and offensive EPM, dunks and threes, offensive EPM. That's pretty astonishing considering the reputation he gets and how people think he's like the system player, and he's because he doesn't score a lot of points, he's overrated. He's not overrated, and you're going to be watching and you're going to be thinking to yourself, man, he doesn't like do anything spectacular. No, he's not going to blow you away with these around the back dazzling passes or these crazy dunks. Or what he's going to do is every single time down, he's going to anticipate the right passes. He's going to get into the paint and create advantages. He's going to hit pull-up threes, and he's going to make it really, really hard on the defense to consistently stop this Pacers team. And he's surrounded by a slew of players who can all shoot, who can all move the ball, and are just generally really, really, really well fitting with Tyrese Haliburton. So I don't like the Pacers in terms of winning the series, but I do like their chances of pushing Cleveland in a way that maybe some people don't anticipate.
What I love about Tyrese Haliburton is he is just constantly hunting shots, and it's interesting the way that he does it. I think it's different from a lot of the ways that point guards have done it in the past, and even that do it now. He is always hunting shots, and what I mean by that is not he's hunting his shot, but he is always looking for a shot opportunity. So he gets the ball out of his hands very quickly. If let's say there's a drive and Miles Turner is open directly one pass away, he's getting the ball to Miles Turner instantly. Now, if Miles Turner doesn't have that shot, guess what? He'll give it back to Haliburton and he'll hunt another shot. Like, he's going to constantly create shots. So their offense can be really effective because it doesn't feel like a situation where it's like, well, we're going to run our offense and we're going to try to get to a good shot with, 5 seconds left on the clock. It's like, let's get to a good shot at 21 seconds. It's not there. All right, let me get it back. All right. Whoa, we found a decent shot at 17 seconds. Oh, I got covered up. Let me get it back. We'll find a new one. And they constantly are hunting shots together with Tyrese Haliburton. Something I think that they do that's really, really cool is that they, as a team, I think do this, but Haliburton's the kingpin of the hunting shots idea, but they attack help with a pass to a player who is being helped off of. So when that player receives the pass, they automatically have an advantage against a closeout. So we often see, a defensive player kind of stunt or help towards where the ball is. The Pacers all give that ball up immediately to the player who is being defended by the player who is stunting or trying to help. And they just attack the basket because that player is out of just simply being a step slow or being out of position is an opening to hunt a shot. And everything happens so fast and so quickly. That is what I really like about this Pacers offense. They play with pace, not necessarily at the highest pace in the league in terms of a per possession basis on a game by game basis, but everything within their offense moves fast. That's a reason why I've always liked Obi Toppin for their offense. Fast processor. When he gets the ball, he's either passing or he's attacking. And I have to say this. This is going to be a mini rant. I have to say this because I'm going to say famously, not famously if you've never watched this podcast before, famously not a big fan of Pascal Siakam. I think he's a very good player. extremely unbelievably talented player in some ways, similar to like a Julius Randle with just how much talent he has at his size and his skill level being absurd. I didn't think he was a great fit for this Pacers team. I think he's still sort of the all-in trade that they made is still questionable to me. And I'm not going to get into that at this moment, but I will say with what we're seeing from Siakam, there's a data point that's so interesting to me. And it ties back, Geoff, to something we've talked about with Jalen Brunson when we've talked about the Knicks. We talked about player tendencies and how much is on the player versus the coach and the coaching paradigm. And is it just that Brunson wants to run this way and he doesn't want to make these passes? Or is it that the approach that the coach is kind of instilling in the team is guiding him in that direction? With Pascal Siakam, it's really funny because I've come to this realization or belief that it is largely a coaching issue. And with Pascal Siakam, I don't think I accounted for that. I want to share a really interesting stat with you and get your reaction to it with Siakam in specific, and with this idea of hunting shots and quick processing and attacking closeouts and all of those things that I just mentioned. Pascal Siakam in the playoffs is averaging so far through the few games that they've played 2.24 average seconds per touch and 1.6 average dribbles per touch. Now, during the regular season, he averaged 2.27 seconds per touch and 1.54 dribbles per touch. So it's pretty much exactly the same. Do you know what he averaged in 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020 before he was a Pacer?
Man, he was so methodical and like he really was Julius like was it double?
It's not double. No, the double would be a like record level, but
yeah,
he is like at least over a second and a half more seconds per touch and at least a dribble to a dribble and a half more per touch. This is a guy who's cut down his seconds per touch and dribbles per touch from his 4 years of what people may believe is his prime by 50% or by like 40%. This is incredible. This is an incredible change for a player who consistently, I'm looking at the data, in 2020, 3.5 seconds, 3.4 seconds in 2021, 3.95 seconds in 2022, 3.62 seconds in 2023. These are long amounts of time that Siakam has the ball on average before he's giving it up. And he is down to 2.24 in this playoffs. That is a significant difference. Pascal Siakam is playing completely different basketball than he's played since basically his rookie season. And I think that's why he's fitting in, because the team has a concerted approach to hunt shots constantly. And if they don't have it, they give the ball up and hunt a new one. And that is the reason why I think they have a pretty scary offense that can challenge and really push the Cavaliers defense.
And again, I mean, to go along with what you're saying, mid-range attempts are down again from that 2-year peak that they had when he shot a lot of mid-range. Turnover percentage, career low. 3-point percentage, career high. Rim percentage, career high. Like, this was a career season for Pascal Siakam, and he deserves a ton of credit for the thing that I love, and I talked about this with Randall today, it's not so much that they're perfectly synergistic with these guys, but I do have an appreciation for guys who clearly made an effort to bend their games and be malleable without getting in the way of these stars. So I think there was a concern that, Anthony Edwards wasn't going to be able to maintain being Anthony Edwards if Julius Randle had a good season. Like, Randle was going to have to get in the way a little bit for Edwards to shine. I don't think that was the case at all. I think Edwards remained great, and Randle, certainly had some Randle moments in Minnesota, but I do think that he found other ways to fill in. And I feel the same way about Siakam. Siakam plays to his comfort sometimes, but it hasn't interfered with Haliburton's ability to be a star and to be a star in his own way, which is to dominate the ball. You want the ball in Haliburton's hands as often as possible. And this goes to your point about seconds per touch and dribbles per touch. And one other thing for Cavs fans who are going to watch the series and be like, wait a second, I thought they play at this crazy pace. XJ made, in my opinion, very early on in the lifespan of our show, an extremely brilliant diversion between two concepts. We were discussing the pace of the pun intended Pacers, And what he brought up is that pace doesn't always mean transition. There's this idea that these fast-paced teams are like the Showtime Lakers, and they get the ball and they run up and down the court, and that's the Pacers don't really do that. They are more like the 7 seconds or less Suns of the mid 2000s in that, like XJ said, they're just immediately hunting shots. They know that if they give themselves the most cracks at it, the most possible cracks at it in 24 seconds, at some point in the lifespan of that shot clock, they're gonna find a good shot. So they're starting the earliest they can, and that's why they're so high paced. Is that a lot of times they just find that shot with 18 seconds left on the shot clock, and there you go. So I think that it's just going to be one of those series where you said it. I don't know that I agree with you. I don't know that the Cavs are beatable, maybe by anyone, if their shot making maintains, because their shot making is that elite. But I do think it's going to require some pretty damn elite shot making for this Cavs team to win. I don't think they're just going to be able to skate by with, oh yeah, we had some shooting, negative shooting variance, but we made up for it in other ways. I think they're going to have to beat this Pacers team, and I think this Pacers team is going to make them earn it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I could see it. My view is that I don't necessarily believe that at this point. I think it'll be more of a Cavs in 5 kind of series, maybe Cavs in 6. But I could be totally off, and you can be completely on base. And trust me, for any Pacers fans watching this, it's not because I hate the Pacers. I'm actually a fan of the Pacers. I love Tyrese Haliburton, one of my favorite players to watch. Again, like Geoff said, I think we both think one of the most underrated players in the league with what he does and how difficult it is to kind of do what he does, which is just feed the ball around and make the easy pass, which we see plenty of NBA stars not do consistently, whereas a guy like Haliburton does it every single time. And we see how impactful just operating with those fundamentals can be. But I just think, I think Mobley is a huge factor in this series with his ability to guard Siakam, with his ability to roam at times when Jarrett Allen's on Siakam. And I think Siakam's going to really struggle to deal with those guys, and they'll always still have rim protection, whether both are on the court or one is on the court. And so I think that that's a big factor. I also think it's a big factor that they can switch on to Tyrese Haliburton, both of those guys, and kind of be okay unless Haliburton's making, his 27 footers. So I just think it's tough defensively, even though the Pacers will continually probe and attack their defense and find shots. And I think they'll score their fair share of points. But to keep up with what the Cavs are going to do, fair share of points is not sufficient. And I just think that, they need a big, big regression from the Cavs shooting wise, especially when they're coming off the bench with guys who are just going to be shooting lights out, like DeAndre Hunter has been shooting absurd, Ty Jerome, Sam Merrill, guys we mentioned already. Obviously when Strus is in the game, a threat from 3 at all times, especially deeper threes. So I just think, man, I don't know how you slow this team down enough to keep up with them unless you're like shooting tons of threes. And Indiana doesn't really do that. They like to get to the mid-range a little bit more than I would like. They try to get to the rim, and they love lifting their big, whether it's Turner or when they play Obi Toppin at the 5 occasionally, they love lifting their big so that the rim is open for their attacks and their stampedes off the catch. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to deal with this Cavs team, especially because I think the Cavs match up well defensively with them, and their shot making has obviously just been incredible. So even a small regression from that, to me, is not sufficient to make up the difference in the teams.
You didn't even mention your favorite switchable big, Dean Wade.
I definitely love Dean Wade. He has not played a ton outside of garbage time, but I think I do think he can be a factor in this series if they need a big kind of wing defender, another guy to throw at Siakam so that Mobley can roam or Jarrett Allen can roam and protect the paint. So I do think that he may play a factor in the series as well.
It's wild that the Cavs have basically spent the whole season preparing for, a playoff series against the Pacers, the Celtics, or the Knicks. And they just were able to rest Darius Garland with a little lingering injury and didn't miss a beat. I thought the Kyle Anderson soundbite about how, clearly there's something personal going on there between the Heat and Darius Garland, where he said, "I think the only thing we learned is that the Cavs are better off without Garland." I don't think that's true. I don't think any data supports that. I think the
No.
Cavs are just really good and really deep, and
And they did
that's
play the worst team in the playoffs.
they
Like,
they
and
play
I
they
said
play.
that repeatedly. The Miami Heat are not like, they're like a classic eighth seed where it's like, they're happy to be there. They're lucky to be there kind of thing. They're not like some of the eighth, like the West, the West Coast, the Western Conference's eighth seed or something like that, where it's like a real team. No offense to Miami. I just don't think they're that threatening. They don't have anything what it takes to push Cleveland in any way, really. So, I think that
They
is a
didn't,
factor.
but Cleveland didn't have to win Game 4 by 55 points without Darius Garland. I thought that was a pretty nice, pretty emphatic showing of their talent. And I just, we're gonna close the loop here. I just think that this something actually, and I talk about on the show all the time. It's about synergy and trying to maximize all these different players. And there are teams out there, I'm sure people who are listening to this know who I'm talking about, who have theoretically much more synergistic rosters, who haven't come close to maximizing all their players the way that Kenny Atkinson has.
Yep.
And I think that, who knows? Maybe they'll have maybe the Pacers will play great. Maybe the Pacers will have some shooting luck and just squeak by the series. But I think pretty much no matter what happens the rest of the way, Cavs fans should feel super good about the coach they have and where they're going, because it's really, really hard to look at this roster and think before the season and think, yeah, they're going to win 63 games or whatever it is, and they're going to have the best odds. Like, they have just so far and away gotten the most out of what they can out of this roster. And what's scary about it is Mitchell can have an off night. Like, Mitchell can just not have it on a given night, and they can just say, all right, well, we're going to clone theory and go with Garland tonight. And Garland's going to carry us. And oh no, now we have to run the offense through a guy who was in the 97th percentile in offensive EPM. It was one of the 10 to 15 best offensive players in basketball. Like, that's what the Pacers are dealing with. And I don't know, if people want to debate Haliburton versus Mitchell, they can do that on their own. But one thing I do know is that there's a lot more pressure on Haliburton to be great and above and beyond great than there
Yep.
is on Mitchell. The Cavs can win this series not getting their best from Mitchell, but Haliburton has to be the best player in this series for the Pacers to have a chance.
I think that's a great way to end it off, because I totally agree with that. I do think that's a margin of error issue, and oftentimes the team that wins the series is not just the team that's better, but it's the team that has a smaller margin of error, or a larger margin of error, whatever, however you say that. So I do think that's the case here, because I do think Haliburton has to be great, and I don't think any individual player on Cleveland has to be exceptional in order for them to win, because of their depth. And because the level of, I mean, you mentioned Darius Garland being a guy, oh no, now a 98th percentile offensive EPM player has to run my offense. It's like, well, I'll go to the bench. Oh no, a 95th percentile offensive EPM player and Ty Jerome has to run the offense. Like, okay, no, he's out. Oh no, a 98th percentile offensive EPM player and Donovan Mitchell has to run my, it's just like, it's just a gluttony of riches. And I think it's going to be tough. Do I think it's possible that, Haliburton and the Pacers overcome it? Yeah, I could see it with some shot luck and Haliburton playing like a superstar MVP level player. Otherwise, I think it's going to be tough. So, any last words before we get out of here, Geoff?
No, just thanks to anyone who made it to the end of this. And we recently eclipsed 4,000 subscribers, which is just nuts. We've only existed for 18 months. If this is your first time listening, we used to make jokes early on in our podcast about being the fastest growing data and film driven NBA podcast in the sphere. But I don't know, it might actually be approaching becoming a reality, because y'all seem to really like what we do. And we've built such a nice community here. We engage with all the comments. And the reason we do that is because we've fostered an environment where people know that whether they agree with us or disagree with us, your opinions will be heard, and we are actively seeking dissent in that way. So we hope you'll, tell us what you think, where we got stuff wrong, and we'd love to hear from you. And again, we appreciate you giving us a shot.
I concur. Extremely well said. Sound like a host over there, Geoff. Yes, so appreciate you all being here. And for Geoff, I'm XJ, and this has been High Hand Theory.